All right. Everybody watch their mouths.
I would. Eh,
Yeah.
eh,
It's not really the style. It's fine though.
no, it's fine. Curious if I fix my internet at all. I imagine it might be slightly better, but the fact that it's just me here right now.
Ah. We're not going to have the.
The crawling in the background.
I don't even know what to describe it as. Like tromping around in the background, doing funny catwalks and other such fun things.
Our dogs, though.
I miss Ben. Where's Ben been?
Ben's been busy. Like, Ben's been real busy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Poor
Sadly.
little guy.
Yeah, he's been real busy. I don't even really get a chance to talk to him too much anymore because he's so busy.
Wow.
I think I talked to him a couple days ago, but it's really been a while. So I can cover this up. Boom. What's up, world? What's up? I am Finger Guns.
Who's that guy?
Who's that guy? All right, I'm gonna pause this because maybe that takes up bandwidth of having that play. And do that. Like honestly, the bitrate itself, I've been in the green so far this entire time, so we're looking good. We're looking solid.
Nice. It's a good start.
It's a good start. We'll see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna hit. Let's give it a couple seconds to see if people come in here.
Hit some buttons.
Hit some buttons.
Some buttoning.
I got my drinks. Yo, you don't drink, right?
No booze for me.
No booze for
Good
you.
for you.
Just good water.
Just the root beers.
Just root beers.
Just the root beers.
Oh man, that's gotta be your thing. You gotta go find craft root beers. Just to.
Dude, so
This one is
I actually
this one's
did.
a circa 1992.
I think Red Hair makes one of my favorites actually.
It's a vintage. It's a good vintage.
From the orchards of California.
My brother-in-law samples root beers like all around. Like whenever he and my sister-in-law go on trips, they'll like they sample the local root beer.
That's awesome. I love root beer. I ain't gonna lie. Like whenever I go to a place that has like our house root beer, I'm like I gotta get that. Like I will get a house root beer more often than I get a house beer, and that's saying something. Like I love how root beer tastes, especially craft root beer. Oh, it's so good.
It's hard to beat. I don't really get into soda very much, but sometimes every now and again you gotta crack open a root beer.
You're just
Sarsaparilla.
you are the what's the word I'm looking for? The inspiration of a healthy lifestyle. No, you don't smoke, you don't drink. Just man. All right,
Yeah,
well, let's go
that.
ahead.
The Vice is ice cream.
I got all the vices still. I got smoking, drinking. Let's go. Just the bad influence. All right.
Oof.
Let's hit some buttons.
All right, buttons it up.
I did the thing.
He did the thing. It's not playing.
Yeah.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Maximum effort.
In this world, there's no surrender.
He's out of line, but he's right. Who the hell is Bucky? You don't like a bear, Blake.
I think you're wrong. Which part? All of it.
Think you're the only superhero in the world?
Touche.
I don't know why, but that sounded really echoey. I don't. Is it just me?
Who knows how it winds up on the final
Yeah,
product?
we'll see.
sounded
It changes
had,
every
like,
time.
A chorus effect on it.
Yeah, it's special. It makes it unique every single time. Anyways, hey everybody,
We got bogus
It's a
headphones.
Rogue Agents intro.
welcome to the Rogue Agents, a podcast. Let's go ahead. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So first of all, let's go ahead and introduce Joey. We have Joey here in the middle of us. We're kind of throwing him to the wolves here. We asked Joey to join us, and he will become a more regular host as things develop. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Joey. Where are you from? What you like to do? What got you into gaming? And what you enjoy about gaming?
All right, I'm Joey. I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Let's see. I got into gaming, I feel like most people, with 40K. That lasted for a good while, and I pretty much solely played that for a long time. I feel like it was.
Let's say what edition to date yourself
Yeah.
for the people.
So I started in 2000,
Okay.
and then I stopped playing around. It had to have been 2013. So, right around then is when I stopped. I was just tired of spending money on just to be able to play the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then got into a little more skirmish type games. Got into HeroClix really heavy for a long time, because I like Marvel, and that was like it for Marvel at the time. So that game kind of phased out, and then MCP popped up, and that like was the best of both worlds for me. It's Marvel, and kind of filled that HeroClix void.
Mhm.
But yeah, I started getting into a lot of skirmish stuff, some board games and things like that. But just kept it. I like the smaller scale because I like fielding painted stuff as much as I can. So that was another major selling point for me.
Yeah, there's like a solid decade lead time on a 40K army getting a paint job.
Yep. Drop a cool $1,000 for an army and then have to paint it for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you know what's real funny is you say most everybody comes from 40K. I've actually never played 40K. That's like one thing that I never got into. Like I jumped right into Flames of War and War Machine, and I think I get a lot of that and a lot of my personal distaste for GW from my dad, actually, because we played fantasy when I was growing up because they had dwarves and they had orcs and it was like super simple. And then like we never got into 40K. We literally went from playing kind of fantasy and more of just like, oh, that's a cool model. Can I get that? And Dad'd be like, yeah, here. And then we'll go ahead and get this gyrocopter thing. And then never really played it. And like we played it like 1 or 2 times. And then Flames of War came out, and then we played a shit ton of Flames of War. And then War Machine, played War Machine. And then basically just me and my dad that played. My brother stopped playing stuff with us. But yeah, I don't know if it was like really that he had a distaste for GW, or that it was like really a dark time for GW, because I would say this is like early 2000s to basically early 2000s is when I was old enough to actually like understand how to play miniatures games, and when we started doing all this. So I would say it was a dark time. Like this, yeah, that was pretty much a dark time for GW, and that is like ingrained in my head that GW is like the devil, and I don't want anything to do with them. So I never really cared for anything GW related, which is kind of funny because I've never touched 40K, never touched 30K, never touched Age of Sigmar. I've read the rules just because I like to understand how games work, and I think it's interesting from that perspective. Right. But I've never bought a single thing that's GW. Yeah, I've never bought a single thing that's GW myself in my entire life, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I thought I had a. The 40K is great. Their lore and their backstory, like their universe is incredible. Mm-hmm. Everything about it, aesthetically and all that. But I don't know, gameplay wise for me, it's just I can't deal with it, man. The rules changes so frequently. There's just way too much gray area. It's I don't know. It's definitely not my cup of tea.
It's certainly the popular game right now.
Oh, absolutely.
The 10th edition drop. Like everybody is playing 40K.
My area is like if you try to get another game, good luck. Yeah, it's like solely 40K.
And that's kind of like maybe that's somewhat of the appeal, is like it's a broad enough audience that you know that you can just find a game to play. Like if you've got an army, you can find a game.
And more recently too, shout out to Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that's not hurting anything.
Yeah, I definitely think it's that's like something that comes into it though, is like where's your audience, where's your appeal? Like people aren't gonna buy into a game if they're never gonna be able to get a game of it. Because we see it with people with MCP all the time. They're like, I don't actually have any MCP models. I just play on TTS because I really like the game system, but I have to drive like 5 hours to play a game in person, which is honestly kind of sad. And I think it's super interesting to think about because how do you change that? Like, is there can you change it, or is it just like the way that this community is?
I think it's hard. That's a hard thing to change. You gotta beat that drum hard.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
And you gotta do it like all the right ways. Chris, the Georgia Fabu Caribou, he's got some great tips for like trying to build up a community. Like that guy knows what he's doing. And like one of the things that we were talking one day about it, and like he was basically like, you got to lose a lot. Like if you're gonna like beat the drum and be the standard bearer, like you've got to throw so many demo games to like bait that hook and like set it and then reel them in.
I mean, that's
you've got to you can't be afraid to stop everything you're doing to like be like, you're interested in this game that I play. Let me tell you all about it. And like you really have to commit. And I think you can change it, but it's hard. And
I mean, that is like a super interesting like aspect of it, like throwing demo games to get people into the game. Is that really giving them a genuine experience? That's actually a genuine question that I have, is because like,
does it matter?
Whenever I mean, no,
just initially.
But it's like whenever I give a demo game to someone, I don't go like full bore, like I and then just crush them. But like, I also very much like don't just give them the game, because if it's somebody who's played games before, they're gonna know you're throwing the game, and they're gonna know it's not a genuine experience.
Straight away.
So I don't really know how I feel about just throwing games because it's a demo game for somebody. But you also like, it feels bad if you're like playing your first game of this and you're like, I don't like this game, I lost, like I have no interest in this.
Like I have an old
read
friend.
the room.
Yeah, right. Like I got an old friend. Like he only plays games if he wins the first game he ever plays of it. Like if he loses that first game, he's like, "Nah, this one's not for me. I'm good." But like, he wins that first game, he's like, "Hell yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. I'm gonna go buy the entire collection like right now."
And then loses every game after that.
It's definitely a skill to be able to teach the right demo game.
Yeah, and you got to be available. You got to do a lot, and then you need like the first like probably 3 to 5 people that you bring on. Like you need them to be the same kind of people that are just gonna be like, let's go, let's beat this drum, and then like maybe everybody together. You give it 6 months to a year, you can probably get something going. But it's hard work, and there's no guarantees.
Consistency is key.
Mm-hmm. Consistency is a big one. Just be there.
So something that we as a podcast are trying to do some housekeeping stuff here. Introduce Joey. He's going to become more regular, probably here quite often actually. And the podcast as a whole, we're looking at altering our design philosophy. I don't really know what you call it. Basically our framework as a podcast. And I don't really know what to call it. But for those of you here, basically probably everybody who's going to listen to this episode is MCP related. But we're kind of like looking into broadening our spectrum and going more into a general gaming philosophy, ideas, general talking about games, and just broadening our spectrum of what we do. Because we play more than just Marvel. We play more than just Shatterpoint. I mean, like, look behind Joey. You got like, how many games you got back there? I am curious. Like,
game store back there.
I got a few of them. A bunch of Zombicide expansion, Street Fighter.
But it's like we all play different games, and to be completely honest, sometimes the well draws up, and it's kind of hard to discuss certain things about one specific game. So we're gonna try our hand in doing more general game discussion, thoughts, ideology, and stuff along those lines. So number one, as listeners, we're still going to talk about MCP. Don't worry about that. We're just not going to be solely MCP. And if you don't want to listen to the episodes that aren't about MCP, we completely understand. It's not going to hurt our feelings. It's just something that we want to do for ourselves to widen our horizons. that being
If you like
said,
listening to me whine about the state of MCP, then
yeah,
I'm
you're
sure
fine.
it'll still happen from time to time.
But like the biggest thing I want to say here is this is basically going to be like a pilot episode for the new improved Rogue Agents, I guess you could say. And if you like what you hear, let us know. If you think we're making a terrible decision, let us know. Any feedback is thoroughly appreciated. And
Always.
I'm really curious to see what people think about this direction we're going to be trying to go in. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our little corner here. I forget what we call this thing. Sam, what you drinking? What you playing? What you painting?
Hot takes, cold drinks.
Yeah, hot takes, cold
we're
drinks.
On the old standard Caucasian tonight. Gonna just enjoy this new vibe and see where it takes us. Man, do what you want,
Man. Man. You need a white Russian now, man.
Yep.
Um,
yeah, it's right there. So,
Have you been painting anything lately?
other than that, yeah. So I've been speed painting a Seraphon army for Age of Sigmar. Speaking of Games Workshop and throwing money down the toilet, it's I fell into Age of Sigmar because that's what my local guys play, and it's been like my best kept secret for the past 6 months, basically. But it's like I've spent more time playing Age of Sigmar than I have playing MCP, and the army projects, like as a hobbyist, like the army projects have really blown me away because I'm working on like kind of my second army for this game, and it's the first army that I bought into is like a starter army that was like basically free because it sucks. And so like they were like, like, hey, we're trying to hook you, right? So like throw the demo game, and then like, hey, I got all these spare parts from everybody, and I went way too hard in the paint with the initial hobby aspect of that first army. So I like set the bar like way too high, like what I wanted it to look like, what it was going to be like actually required. Because I've been painting MCP for the past 3.5 years, where it's like every model is like, if I care about this model, then I care about this model. And I started doing that with like a 75, 80 person like army, and it was like, this is no, I've made a terrible mistake. So now I have this like back burner hobby project that's that one, and I picked up my second army is something that I actually like want to play, and so that's Seraphon. It's like lizard wizards and dinosaur riders and little tiny frog people. So it's it's a good time. It's very weird stuff. And so I've been pushing myself as almost like a speed painter. So like the current goal, because like I have to have a battle ready army for the next event I'm going to, and so I'm trying not to ruin the future by doing like as good of a base coat as I can. It's still like going to be like enough to capture the bases. So that's been a lot of hobby time for me. It's been fun.
Nice. For me, I am working on my Nova list for painting, and I just gotta show this off because I really love how this one came off. Oh, come on. Focus. Come on, focus.
Wait for it.
Why is it not focusing?
I think that's a Psylocke.
I think
Oh,
it's
wow,
a Psylocke.
Psylocke appears.
For the listener, I believe that we are being shown a Psylocke right now.
Fair. But I did mine in the X-Force, so it's the black, not the purple
Oh,
for her suit.
Nice, yeah.
So slightly
Oh, yeah.
different.
My Psylocke
I
is very
love
purple.
I love how the energy sword came out. I really had a lot of fun painting this model. Probably the most fun model I've painted in a while. I think that's like the coolest thing I love about like this Nova list that I have, both Nova lists, is it's all really cool models to paint. Like I got pretty much most of foes and like what Emma, Bill, like really cool models and poses. So I'm really excited to keep cranking on them. So that's been fun. And then just play testing my Nova list and working on that and fine tuning certain things. Because we got 2 weeks till Nova. And for those of you who do not know, the three of us are a team in the team event. So get ready to make a ruckus.
That's right, baby.
So yeah, what about you, Joey? What have you been playing, painting, working on? Oh, and I'm drinking a Juicy Magic. I tell you, like ever since we started hanging out with Omnis, I drink IPAs now. Like he has transformed me into an IPA person. I don't get it. But Joey, what you
It's a
drinking,
phase.
playing, painting? It's a phase.
We got some high quality H2O. Pretty
Gorgeous.
simple in the drink department. But yeah, I've been same thing, kind of fine tuning some Nova paint jobs. Both rosters are complete, which is cool. It's good to have that out of the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been doing that and trying to jam as many games as I can. I have been dabbling in God Tier as well. Speaking of other games, my brother kind of got me into that.
Okay.
That's been a lot of fun too. It's hex based, so there's not wacky measurements and stuff. But yeah,
I had a
that's
couple friends that were into that for a while.
Yeah.
Is it still? Is it a living game still, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. They actually, I didn't realize that they have a small event going on at Nova this year also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. That game's been a lot of fun. It's been cool to play. You know, I did this last year, going to Nova. Just played way too many games of MCP. But so it's been a nice change of pace, switching it up in between, trying new
Nice.
stuff out. But that's about it for me.
Nice.
Yeah, my Nova stuff's pretty easy because it's all like pretty old.
There.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, God, that's been painted
Oh
for a
yeah, that's
while,
already
actually.
done. Put that in the list.
So this episode, we're gonna talk about what draws you into a game, what makes you want to play a game, or pick up a game, or try it out, or keeps you in a game. So I guess we could just start with like basic thoughts when it comes to it. And I kind of want to like hear about Joey because again, like he has this huge ass collection behind him. Like, one, how do you balance playing so many different games? Because that's a huge task in itself. That's always like kept me from really expanding how many games I play at one time. I think the most I've done was Infinity, War Machine, Guild Ball. So that was 3 games that were pretty big miniature based. Because War Machine's an army, Infinity's like you're looking at 20 models. And then Guild
Mhm.
Ball was what 6 to 10, something like that. So it wasn't really too much of a strain. Nowadays it's actually super easy because I got Marvel and Shatterpoint, which I'm only looking at 18 models for 2 different games,
Right.
which is super easy. But when we look at all these games you have behind you and all that, like how do you balance knowing so many different game rules? What got you into all these different games? And yeah, let's just take it from there.
I feel like for me the initial thing is aesthetic. That's gonna be the initial draw for me. Like, oh, I mean Marvel, that's Street Fighter right there. That's pretty self-explanatory. Street Fighter's awesome, but as far as juggling, that's a little more difficult. I've had a few of those for quite a while, so they get some pretty good replayability. And it's like almost like learning the game all over again because you know teach somebody that's never played it,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. The replayability is good. But I would say at any given point I like regularly play like 2 games at a time, 2 systems. It is hard though because as I said earlier, like my local store is like 40K or nothing. So we have like 4 or 5 other people that play anything else besides that. So it gets a little tedious, but me, like I'm willing to like go to other stores and stuff, so that kind of helps. Like I'll go on a road trip and try to make something happen for the day or the weekend or whatever.
Traveling was definitely something that my local guys were big on when we were doing like MCP, where it was that we would have, you know, like 2.5 hour range that we would go
Right.
to, and then that started bringing, you know, those same people would now come to see us, and then because we were doing that and like spreading the gospel around, then it'd be like, hey, so we're going there in like 2 weeks. That's like, you know, an hour from you guys too. Like we should,
Right.
you know, head up there too, and then that starts to build like a larger core to your group. So it's not just like people that you've got like immediate access to. It's like this like larger, you know, multiple play group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I will
because
say-
like I said,
Yeah.
things get kind of stale.
Jo-
It's the
Joey
same people all
Joey
the time,
is
and they're just tired of it.
Joey is very much have game will travel. Honestly, like the first time I met Joey was actually at Battlegrounds. I think this is before we even talked
Yeah.
on
Yeah, I
online.
think so too. Yeah.
And real funny thing is we actually have like somebody I worked with like years and years ago, like almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Yep.
Like Joey actually worked with after I had worked with him, and he's like, "You know this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know that guy. I worked with him for like 3 years." It was real funny. But yeah, Joey goes like he traveled up all the way up here to Battlegrounds to play in tournaments all the time. And first game we played was when I was testing Malekith and he was playing Brotherhood, and I felt terrible because he traveled all this way to play some good old MCP, and I just like this is when Malekith first came out, so it wasn't like the scariest character in the game yet. And he came up and I just like you actually gave me a run for my money too. Like it was a really close game. No, like Joey actually gave me a run for his money.
Before that was Malekith too.
But yeah, it was good times.
That was during your like 150 games of Malekith before NashCon, before Nova last year.
Before
right?
Nova last year, yeah. Like let me crush everybody with Malekith. But no, I think it's super interesting because I think aesthetic is like it's what draws you to the game. Because, and I was talking to my dad about this actually recently about like what changed in like gaming communities. Because we look back to like when I was a kid, when I think Joey and I are similar age, but it's like when we were kids, and then like when Sam was a kid, you have a lot of like original IP games. You didn't have a lot of like we're gonna buy licenses and create these games that are based off of licenses. It was all original IP. And then I don't know, like what in the last 10 to 15 years, like every miniatures game I swear comes out is like a bought IP. It's not like an original IP. Right. It's based off of something. It's based like it is got this license and then it's selling this license. You got Aliens versus Predators. You got Star Wars, Marvel, Street Fighter. Just a whole lot of IP games. And like when you really think about aesthetic, it's like, oh man, is that Hulk over there? Like I want to play Hulk.
Right.
And like it sells, and like you can kind of really see like like IP sells. And I find it super interesting.
Locks you in to like you have to build the game in a certain way. You have to like the characters have to be relatable to what you want them to be, like how you like imagine them, which is like where I think old Hulk and MCP was such a like a tearjerker for so many people. Was it like here's this like character that like it's not that he's trash, it's just that he doesn't play like you want to play Hulk. He does really crazy things on the objective side of the game, and all you want to do with this dude is like punch twice, gamma leap, and throw. And like, if you do that, he's just gonna die, and you're gonna be sad. Your opponent's gonna be thrilled because you'd be like, "Thank you for just like handing this over to me. Like, this is a third to to half of your squad." You know, like, oh man, whoopsie, mistakes were made. And I think that's one of the things that like the IP, like a weakness of IP games in general, is that you get stuck, and you probably have oversight too. So like now when you're like, I want to fix Hulk, like you got to be like, all right, hold on. We'll call the legal team to call the other legal team, who will run it up the food chain to make sure that it doesn't break any lore with the nerds over there. And then they'll find out whether or not that's on the agenda for the overlords. And it's like, yeah, okay, like we're fine. You can make this change. And it takes, weeks or months just to get that like approval. And then you're like, okay, well, what do we do with it now? And I think that's a hard part that I think all of this IP has. And the other thing that came up when you were saying that was I remember like the old Marvel Overpower card game that came out and like you guys were probably in diapers still.
No, I think I want to say I played that, but like HeroClix had Marvel, like Joey said, and like, do you remember? I think one of the first miniature games that like I played with my dad was Mage Knight. Like one of the first like HeroClix games.
Oh yeah,
was Mage Knight.
Yeah, that was the HeroClix game. That was the one that got me.
That was I think I'm pretty sure it was Mage Knight was the one that like basically kicked off the HeroClix stuff. Like that was like the first one that the whole clickable bases did and all that.
Right.
And the game was so cool until my buddy spent like $1,000 on it and showed up and had like all the rares, and we were like, oh sweet, like you've got like Storm Gaunts or whatever, and I'm like, I've got Storm Gaunts too. How come all your Storm Gaunts are better than mine?
I spent $1,000 on it
because it's a better Storm Gaunt. I remember this one little like Draconoid.
That was my issue with that game.
Like it's crazy though to think about though, because it's like aesthetics draw you to a game, and if you have somebody who's like trying to do a game that's based off of a new IP, like let's look at God Tier for example. Like, what drew you to God Tier? I'm actually really curious about that.
Well, I actually, when it very first came out, I backed it on Kickstarter, and I had
Yeah.
literally everything in the entire range, and I could not find anybody to play it. And this was a long time ago. This was at least 6 years ago, however long it's been out.
Yeah.
But I sold it.
When
I
did
sold
when
all
did
of
Guild Ball
it.
die?
Yeah. So I sold it, and then my brother got into it a little bit. He was like, "Oh, have you heard of this game?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard of it. It's a rad game." So he came to visit, and we got a couple games in, and I was like, why not? I'll grab a couple warbands and get after it, because the warbands are only like $19,
Yeah, it's
and you only need
cheap.
3 to play. So yeah, it's dirt cheap. But God Tier, like these days, like I said, my tastes have changed. I look at, obviously aesthetic is huge for me. Like, I'm not gonna play a miniatures game that looks dumb or boring. So
Yeah.
if it looks cool, you got me. But
Can you? I mean, do we want to like be degenerates and like talk about like can you name a game that looks boring? Where you're like, nah, that game's boring. I got no interest in that.
I
Bolt
honestly
action.
can't think of any off the top of my head. That's a good.
Bolt action.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good
Historicals,
point. Any
yeah, I mean, that's-
historicals? Yeah, we have. A
So,
small
okay,
group
so
here
I
of
will-
guys that do historical,
I want to
but-
fight that a little bit. I think some historicals are actually pretty cool. But I also kind of get that from my dad because he's huge into historical games. Like he will set up like thousands of minis for like a Napoleonic battle, and
Yep.
I'm just like, I don't have the time or anything for that. That is I hate to say it, but that is an old person game that is designed
100%.
for people who have nothing but time on their hands. I don't have that kind of time.
So that's that's the greatest generation of gamers, right? Like if we're the
They're the
boomers of
OGs.
MCP, then they're the greatest generation.
Well, that's like another thing
But
too,
dude,
though.
it's like,
Is
on that point.
yeah,
Yeah, like on that point, it's, and I guess boring isn't even the right word. It's normal. Like it's a human being. Like I don't care. I want to see like a superhero. You know what I mean? Like I want to see something cool.
Mhm.
That's kind of what.
yeah.
I think historics and all that stuff is awesome, but if I'm gonna spend money out to play a game, it's not gonna be like humans.
Well, so like I said, I used to play Flames of War when I was younger, and it was cool because you had like a shit ton of
Mhm.
tanks, and it was like I have a shit ton
Yeah.
of tanks. These are badass. And then you look at like Bolt Action, where I feel like it's like a lot of just dudes that I don't feel like painting because it's a lot of dudes. And that's for me.
Over
That's
this
like
block of
honestly,
dudes, over
what
next
is
to this other block of dudes?
But it's like,
Yeah.
what is the barrier to entry of like painting? And I think that's where skirmish games have like an absolute advantage, where it's like, dude, you only got to
Mhm.
paint 6 to 10 models, and you're done. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You could literally play the same 6 to 10 models every single game, and that's all you need to paint. Like I love
Yep.
painting, but there's like a lot of people nowadays just don't have the time to go and paint full armies. They don't have the time to go paint. Like you said, like you get $1,000 worth of
COVID's over,
Warhammer.
right?
And, yeah, like,
Who has time? Like, we're not on house arrest anymore.
but it's very much like, how much time do I have to invest in this game? That's an appeal to me. Is like, does this game look like it's easy to get into, easy to understand the rules? I think that's another thing, is like, how easy do the rules read? If I feel like I'm reading an encyclopedia and I fall asleep reading it, I'm probably not going to play that game because I can't pay
Right.
attention to the rules to remember them. So ease of reading for the rules, ease of like play. But I do think the number one thing, and again, I go back to like what my dad told me, is like aesthetics. Aesthetics is like what sells the game. How cool do these models look? Like, you don't want a normal dude.
Yep.
You want some crazy ass monster looking thing, or you want some cool model that looks super unique and be like, oh, what is that? That, like, it catches your eye versus some World War II soldier that you've seen a million of them in your life of,
Mhm.
as a gamer. So like, and I'm not like gonna down like historical miniatures games or anything like that. They have their place and they have their community, and I think they're cool. Like, I will say, when we went to NashCon, the first MCP, like I walked around that hall, and NashCon's a huge historical gaming event, And like walking around and seeing some of those tables and the work that these people put into like those terrains for those tables and like the models and all that. And I don't know
Probably
what it
gorgeous.
is about historical miniatures games, but I swear all of them are like 15 millimeter, where they're like super tiny dudes. And like, wow, you painted this. Like, wow, I could not have the patience for this. But I think it's super interesting, and I think but it's not something that I personally want to play. That's not my aesthetic that's going to grab me. Where it's like Marvel instantly grabs me, Star Wars instantly grabs me. Some crazy looking void monster, I'll be like, wow, what is that? What game is this? I can play a void looking monster that has this cool ass model. I want to paint that. I do think like aesthetics is probably like the number one grabber for miniatures games of why you dip your toes in the water. And then it goes into the rules, how easy it is to play, how fun it is, because we're paying money for this game, we're wasting our time on these games. Like, are you having fun? And this goes back to like the episodes of like
Gotcha.
Sam and I talking about what's your why. And it's like, I'm playing these games because I want to have fun. I want to forget about the stressors of life. I want to like go into our own little nerd world where I could just like focus on this for 1 to 2 hours and forget about the craziness of things. And if the game doesn't provide that for me, then I'm probably not interested.
What's like? I think that like the size of the group you can play with is a kind of a
BRB.
big deal. Like that's something that we always you want to have enough people to play where you're not gonna get stuck playing the same guys, you know, every week in week out playing the same things. And I also think that so far as the historicals are concerned, like I don't want to disparage any historical minis players, but like live your best life, do what you want to do. Again, not for me. The terrain is an amazing looking part of that game, and anybody who's been around me at any point in the past year and a half knows that I'm not a huge fan of painting terrain. Like it's like the bottom of my priority list. So good on those guys for making some beautiful boards to play on. That's just like nothing that makes me excited.
Yeah.
I think that there's a weird thing with this hobby where it's almost 3 hobbies in one, because you've got a social element where it's like it's kind of covering that like going out to a bar kind of a feel where you're like, you know, you're just going and hanging out with friends to a large extent, whether you're meeting friends you rarely see at a con, you're traveling with a group of guys that, you know, you play with regularly, like whatever that is, like that's one element, and that's a great element that takes up some time. And then we've got the actual games themselves, which is like, you know, I'm going to trade my real life stress for some, you know, make believe stress and have some fun with that for a while. So now we've got, you know, strategy and tactics and the actual gameplay element. And then you've got the hobby side of it where it's like taking the time to at least put paint on something. If you're not pushing yourself or not trying to get better, you know, like that's fine, right? That's on you. Like engage with the hobby how you want to. But it's like, I got 3 hobbies for the price of one. And you throw content on top of that, it's just like just the font that keeps on
and
giving.
and now you are so busy that your wife is like, what the hell are you doing? Like you don't spend time with me anymore because now you're content creating, and then next thing you know, you pick up another podcast, and then you're like, oh my god, what am I doing with my life?
How about another game?
I bought another game. Like, do you have time for all these games? I sure do.
24 hours in a day.
When do you sleep? I don't.
That's
Uh,
where the trade-off happens.
Why do you think
Something
every
had to
nerd
give.
has
That
dark
was the
circles
easiest
under
one.
their eyes? You know, every nerd has dark circles in their eyes because they don't sleep. They stay up all night. Okay, that's okay. I have a question for you guys. Are you more of? I guess Joey's said this already, but like, are you more of a proactive painter or a procrastinating painter, where you are still painting models the night before you go to an event?
Always
Not
depends
me.
on the project.
Yeah, I gotta have mine done. I kind of made especially when I started MCP. I was
Yeah.
like, well, most of my stuff is gonna be there's gonna be paint on the model before it touches the table, and then it'll be finished soon after that. So I told myself I was never gonna go the army route again, because 90% of your army's not painted and just doesn't look as cool. But I think having the painted stuff also does better for community building or
absolutely.
catching people's eyes, stuff like that. You got a bunch of great plastic stuff on the table, people they'll look and oh, that's cool, and then just move on. But they're not gonna look at the detail and see like what it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's helped me a lot, anyways.
Yeah.
I got people asking about Marvel all the time at the shop. But unfortunately, not many people play it.
I mean, it's funny. So like early on, we talked about Marvel and what we look for in games, and like for all of us, for all three of us, like that game really ticks the boxes, right? It's like it's an aesthetic I can get in. It's things that I like want to and have a good time with, and the rules are really good. And it's also like really tough now because there are other things that are like almost like baggage on this game, like the fact that it's been going strong for as long as it has now, right? Without like a material update to the game. Like we had like the card pack last year, we got a Crisis update. So like they're curating the game experience, but at the same time, if you want to buy into this game, you've got 4 years of models to look at because you mentioned pay to play with Games Workshop, and like that's not a lie, but there's a different like pay to play model going on with the rapid release schedule for these kind of games. Like Fantasy Flight did it, AMG does it, and you kick out something that you're going to want every month. Like, it's like, oh, crap.
I mean, that's like the cool it's like a, I don't know, I guess play devil's advocate here or whatever you want to call it. But like that is like the monkey on the back for AMG is like there were so many models that I bought where it's like they literally just sit on the shelf. Because I was like, wow, that's freaking, oh, I don't know, Beast hanging on a tower. I want that. I want Beast. When's the last time I played X-Men, like pure X-Men, that I actually took Beast? I like probably when they first came out. When's the last time that I played freaking, I don't know,
Sentinels?
I don't have Sentinels, so I learned my lesson by the time Sentinels came out. But it's true though, because it's like you look at these characters where it's like, wow, that's such a cool box, and then like you're playing a game, and if you're playing it for a competitive edge, there's some characters that are just gonna sit on a shelf and collect dust. When Marvel
and if
was
you're playing
first,
for a theme, there's a bunch of characters that sit on the shelf too. Like,
but it's like
you got a lot of shelf sitters.
Well, it's also like for the longest time, Marvel like arguably had a bad packaging box layout. Whereas, like, you kind of forced people to buy boxes they didn't care for the cards. I'm really glad that they've gone away from doing that. Like, they learned their lesson and they've gone away from doing that. And I'm super thankful that they did. Because now I very much feel not pressured to buy boxes. I feel like I could buy what I actually want to buy to play, or what I'm aesthetically wanting. And that's one of the coolest things about Marvel and Shatterpoint, is the fact that, like, not only are these, like, a fun game piece, they're really cool models just to paint up and have on a display shelf. Like, I have all my models now sitting on this wall, just on these shelves, and it's super cool because it's like, wow, now I got to finish painting all of them, of course. But it's still very much like...
That's besides the point.
Yeah, it's besides the point. And I think that's something to like look at too, is like you have collectors that want to get into stuff like this, like people that are like this basic painters, or even they commission these pieces because they're like, wow, I want this X-Men affiliation box and I want to put it on my wall because I love X-Men. And that's where IPs are like huge when it comes to miniatures gaming. But then you have 40K even. Like 40K has become its own IP over the past 40 years. I think it came out in the 80s, where it's like they got books. Like I'm surprised they don't have a freaking movie now. So it's like
they got a show coming, right?
Show's coming.
Do they? I actually didn't hear about that. They have a show coming.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, yeah.
Oh, he's doing a show.
That, I believe.
That's actually pretty cool. I might
Amazon.
actually watch that. I might actually watch that.
I'm not a 40K player, but
I like
I'll
Cavill.
watch it.
He's the nerd messiah. You gotta back Henry.
He is the nerd that is making nerds not nerds. But I think it's super interesting though to like look at all of this and be like, what drew me to Marvel to begin with? And it was very much like Epic Duck Studios was painting Captain America on a Twitch stream, happened to pop in his channel, and I was like, what? Like, there's a Captain America model? Like, where do I get this? And he's like, Marvel Crisis Protocol. Buy the core box. I'm like sold,
Yep.
like just immediately. And it's like, it's very much aesthetic. And like you look at Malifaux, I loved Malifaux for the longest time because I love steampunk. I love steampunk
Mhm.
stuff. I love
Yeah.
that aesthetic. And like, what is Malifaux? Malifaux is like a steampunky world with crazy and kooky characters that are great. Guild Ball, same thing. It's like steampunky, and I love that aesthetic. And it like then it was like, cool. What's the next step? Well, what's the game mechanics? Oh, cool. These are really sick mechanics. Like Malifaux has a whole entire card flip mechanic where it's super unique,
Which is
super
awesome.
different. I love Malifaux. I just my biggest issue with Malifaux, it comes down to who's playing it in the area. Nobody.
Exactly.
But it was crazy. You go to
I got a
Nova,
warband sitting on the shelf.
like you go to Nova, and Nova had like half of that room full. Like it was half Malifaux,
Yeah, a
half
lot,
MCP.
yeah.
And it's like, where are all these people coming from? Like, who plays Malifaux anymore? But like, it's super interesting to look at these gaming corners, I guess you could call it, dichotomies,
Yeah.
and like evaluating like pockets, like what makes a game your main game? That's actually the next question I have for you guys. What makes a game your main game?
People
Well,
to play it with.
Yeah, that's aside from that, because I feel like that comes with the territory. But for me, is I definitely start looking hard into the rule set.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because when I'm playing a game, one, I want to get good at it, and I don't want there to be any gray area. I don't want any like gotchas and all that stuff. That's kind of annoying.
Mhm.
But that, and then when when you're playing your opponent, I don't want to spend time arguing who thinks who's right. So
That's the 40K way, right?
whoever's louder is right. Yeah. So and so told me yesterday this is how it works.
Well,
Okay. All right.
Sam, if we're gonna adopt this holistic gaming approach, we can't shit on games.
Touche.
I mean, the 40K guys I talked to, whoa, that came out real wrong. The 40K guys I talked to last year at Nova, we're all really normal people. They weren't like the grognards that you hear about and that we're like, joking about referencing here. I killed Lizard with that one.
Man
Almost killed
down.
my nose.
So I mean, there's good people on both sides, right? Like there's always somebody that is a cool guy playing whatever game,
Yeah.
and you play it for fun, you play it for whatever. If it turns your crank, it turns your crank. Like go
Right.
for it, live your best life.
And let's not get crazy here. There's a bunch of bozos that play MCP too. Like we'll go ahead and throw that out there.
I play MCP.
I mean, I've been one.
Yeah, I mean we're nerds. What do you want?
You
That's-
still
that's all-
are. You're
that's all
playing
games.
Black Order at Nova. What are you talking about?
Hey, Black Order is the baseline for fair MCP anymore. Like
Keep it in the faith.
if you are not this tall, you can't ride this ride. First is tragedy, then is farce. I got 2 rosters for Nova.
It's good.
One's worse than the other one. Not sure which one's which.
It's a toss up.
But you got Frank,
Way
so
to
it's
keep 'em
okay.
guessing.
I do have Frank, yeah. He's in both of them, for what that's worth.
Hey, how
Ooh.
about it?
Yeah. there's
I
your
only have
tidbit.
Frank in. I have Frank in one of mine.
Well,
because
that's because I
that's because you have the other
bogarted
one.
him for the team event.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't need no Frank. Oh man.
Future Frank. That's all. You
Okay, so I guess
Future
my
Frank.
last thing that I want to touch on when it comes to this is what keeps you in a game.
I think that has a lot to do with the, what do you call it? Like the creators of the game, how they are.
Yeah.
Like we were like MCP for example. That's the main game I've been playing, so I'll use that as an example. And I would imagine most of these people play it as well. They had that very consistent release schedule. They had like the teaser would come out, then they'd show the model and blah blah blah, show the card, and then they would drop it, and they just kept going and going and going. And the way that went, and the way that the game was, it just made it. It seemed like it was always fresh.
Yeah.
Because this affiliation would get bolstered, this affiliation would get bolstered. Like, oh, you could just bounce around, play a different affiliation all the time. But yeah, I think the game creators themselves have a lot to do with that, and the actual community itself. But that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum, I guess.
I mean, I bounced around so much in MCP. Like I was like a faction tryhard for a long time, and then I decided to branch out. I literally played like everything. Like I would play this for a couple weeks, and then that for a couple weeks, and I feel like the first 2 years of this game, like I bought everything that came out. And then I wanted to play with it because it's like, no, I got it. And it's
Right.
like some things like, I'd play it for a week or two. I'd put it down and be like, actually that was really fun. And I'd come back to it like with a new, fresh idea. A new model would come out. Like, I'm going to buy that one, right? Put it into something else that was old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Like, let's just go. And
Oh wow.
like,
You getting married?
I still enjoy. I'm married to MCP for a long time. It's an open marriage now. So for me, MCP was my pandemic game. Like it was the game that I picked up. Like my old local friends before I moved cross country had all like just gotten into MCP, and we were all like talking about. Like that was the game that we were all talking about. And then I left, moved cross country, and we stayed in touch. And so I just kept talking to my old gaming group because I didn't have an opportunity to make a new gaming group yet where I was. And so like my old friends kind of just morphed into the TTS community for MCP, and like that just like that dominated my gaming life for a year and a half, 2 years, just because I didn't have anywhere else to put all of this gaming energy that I'd been building up, for the past 5 years before that, playing X-Wing and Legion and traveling around, hanging out, being a tryhard, having fun. Like it needed somewhere to go, and MCP, especially at that time, like felt like that's what it was. Like it was like this new, like competitive game that had no competitive support. So you literally were just playing for the love of the game, and everything was online instead of being like in stores. So like even more, like it was just like I don't know. You didn't have to make eye contact with people when you played busted ass shit into them, and then on top of that, like everybody was trying that hard, or at least a lot of people were, and it was a fun, hyper competitive game space to be in for a really long time. And then, there's maybe I didn't quite pick up on the signs of burnout, like in myself, where it's like, I was like pushing too hard with the same game, doing the same things. Like, and that's when I think I started flipping all sorts of different, rosters and just playing like everything. And that revitalized the game for me for a really long time. It was just fun. Like it's a great game. Like I got nothing bad to say about the bones of this game. Like it's just fun to play. And so what keeps me playing a game is depth, and same thing that gets me playing games is people to play with.
Yeah.
If I've got people I want to play with, then like I'm all over it. I'll beat
I
that
think-
to death.
I think for me, it's very much one is like my tie to the game. Like I fucking love X-Force. Everybody knows this. I play X-Force.
Yeah.
I will preach X-Force. I will play X-Force even if they're bad or good. They were like my favorite comic growing up. I will play what's bad. And I've also been this way with every single game that I played. Guild Ball, I played Hunters, which were very much considered to be the shittiest team you could possibly play. War Machine, I played Signar, but I played Captain Darius, who arguably, when I played him, was not a very good warcaster. I've always played like the
Likely story.
underdogs. No, like for real. Like you have people who it's like once per game you can like advance your whole entire team, and then he was like, once per game, if you're base to base with a model, and you meet these other criteria, you can heal a little bit, which ultimately turned into like you can heal like their whole entire hitboxes and all that, which was really good. But it's like you can only heal one, and like what is that actually doing for your game agency? And it wasn't a whole lot. So it was very much like the characters that I played, and the faction that I'm like drawn to was always like the shittiest of the factions, or the shittiest of the characters. Like, let me play the underdogs. I really don't know fucking why. Like, I played Hunters for Guild Ball, and they were very much like, why are you playing Hunters? I don't think when in Guild Ball's lifespan, I don't think Hunters ever won anything, and I think that for like me as a gamer is like always like trying to show and be like that innovative like, wow, this person like did it with Hunters, or this person did it with X-Force.
Right.
I've always been like, that's like always been like my goal is to be like that person.
You're proven skill. Like
Yeah.
you're not just proven that you were able to collect a ultra powerful collection, or team,
But
or
it's-
whatever it is. Like,
I mean,
you
what's-
didn't
what's-
just you weren't just a good general manager. You were also a great coach.
I mean, like, and like the craziest part about it is I haven't. And I'll be completely straightforward. Like local tournaments. I've won local tournaments, sure. But like big scale events, anything like that, any TTS leagues, anything like that. I've made it to cuts with teams that were. I made it to cuts with foes when they were laughed at for why are you playing Goblin? Like what the hell? Like before Goblin got fixed, I was playing Goblin,
Yeah.
Carnage, and fucking All You Got, and it was like let's fucking go. Because it was me and Mark who were basically running the same list. We were bouncing ideas off each other. I made it to like the semifinals with cuts with foes, but it's always like my goal is like I love playing an underdog. This is completely off topic here, but that's what I do. But anyways, back to what keeps me playing a game, and I really think like what Joey said with where a company who's behind the game creation is supporting the game creation. Sam and I have talked about this. We call it stewardship of the game. If a company has excellent stewardship of the game, then I'm in, because if the company believes in that product and they show that they believe in that product, then I have no doubts about that product. But if a company isn't showing me that they have faith in their own product, then why should I get behind that product, or why should I stay investing in that product? And that's a huge thing for me, where it's like, if I don't know what this company is trying to do, then it's like, does the company even know what they're trying to do? Is this a worthwhile investment of me to put my money and time into to keep playing, where I've been burned by companies before just randomly? And this is where this really comes from.
FFG burned me so good.
Man, I'll say it. I'll say it. Like
X-Wing,
Steamforge,
Imperial Assault, X-Wing, and Legion. Just like
I ain't gonna lie, FFG has a
Let's watch this power
terrible
level creep up.
FFG has a terrible rap sheet as far as like letting players down. But for me, it was Guild Ball. Like Guild Ball was fucking going great. They announced God Tier. I was super stoked for God Tier. I was like, wow, my favorite game company is making a new game. It's gonna be kick ass. And then it was like, yeah, we're closing down the game. It's your guys' fault. And it was like, what? And that made me lose instantly like all faith. It made me lose all faith in the company as a company. And I'm glad to see God Tier is like doing as well as it is. I'm not gonna like say like I hate, but like me personally, I'm probably never gonna play God Tier because I can't trust Steamforge. I can't trust them to me to invest my time into and get so involved with a game for like them to just randomly close down a game. And that's because of Guild Ball. And that's just my perspective of it. You may have a different perspective, anything like that. But like if I see those like red flags that happened when it came to Guild Ball, then I'm instantly going to be like, no, I don't care what game it is. I'm probably going to start backing out because I don't want to go. It's almost like a bad breakup, like it's like it's not you, it's me, or it's not me, it's you. Goodbye. So it's very much like I don't want to go through that again. Like I love Guild Ball. If Guild Ball was still a game today, I probably never would have gotten into MCP, to be completely honest. I never would have, because at that time frame in my mind state as a person and a player, I couldn't balance that many games. And at that time I was playing War Machine, which ultimately I dropped off. I was playing Infinity because my local gaming group was playing Infinity as well. But like Guild Ball was like I'm going to the game store every single week to play Guild Ball, and I don't give a fuck. Like I am going to do this. I love that game. And then all of a sudden to be told we're closing this game down, bye-bye. Like just randomly. That was the best part. So I can't bring myself to like, I guess, fall into that trap again, so to say, or fall into that thing, which is like when you look at MCP and Shatterpoint. AMG is a great company in the aspect of they put out these great games. They have a great rule set. They have 2 different rule sets for 2 different games that are going on. They also have X-Wing and Armada, but they also kind of adopted those games. I never got into them. And Legion. Yep.
Legion 2.
Legion's a thing. But it's like Shatterpoint and MCP. I love because I love the IP. I love the rule set. And I like AMG. AMG does a great job with their games. But to be completely frank, if I could say one bitch and complaint here, it would be I wish AMG had more transparency. I wish that they would say, hey, here is a roadmap for the next 6 months. We're not like, don't tell me the spoils. I don't want the spoils. I don't want this. Tell me the direction you want to take the game. Tell me the problems you know that's going on with the game. Tell me the things you're doing to address these problems. What I dislike about AMG is the radio silence that we get, and then the whole status quo is good. And that it honestly kind of upsets me a little bit because I've poured a lot into MCP and Shatterpoint, and I'm not saying I hate AMG now. I'm just saying that that's one thing that I wish AMG would do is be more transparent about what their plans are as far as do they realize these issues. And I think the biggest thing that showed me that they're starting to was the Twitter post, like almost a month ago now, where it's like, hey guys, we know something's going on. Here's some stuff that's coming. Like, that is what I want. I want AMG to do that on like maybe like even a biannually, is that the right term? Every 6 months, basically. Give us like a status check instead of just like, hey, here's a constant flow of shit. Like, not necessarily shit, but just here's a constant flow of stuff. But like
here's more of our game that you love to play.
Yeah. Without addressing anything, because you see all the stuff on Facebook, you see all the stuff on Discord, you see all the stuff here. Like, address it. Like, and honestly, if a company addresses these issues, I have more faith in that company as a gaming company, and more faith in like what I'm doing with this game, because that means that the gaming company shows me that they care as much as I do, and that gets me to stay.
I think
in the
some
game.
of that's small studio. Like,
you're not
that's
wrong.
Just an issue that small studios have. That issue. Every small studio that I've played, they've all had that.
But okay, so I'm gonna counterpoint you here. When AMG was doing Mini Stravaganza 2 times a year, they did this. They gave us a roadmap.
Yep.
They told us what is going on, what they want to do, and all of the above. And then they just said, we're not doing Mini Stravaganza anymore. You're going to have Adepticon. But now randomly we're getting the Mini Stravaganza.
Now we're getting it back.
Which I'm for.
Some of that's just, they're a new studio too. So like some of that's just finding footing. You know, you're like, who are we? How do we do this? How do we do this right? What feels right to us? What do we want? And there's a freedom in, you know, that's the American dream, right? Like, you get to decide how you want your business to look and work and interact with the world. And I mean, if anything, I appreciate that it does seem like they have, you know, they've grown. There's a living and growing element to it where they're trying to improve.
Which is where it comes down to where I haven't just been like, fuck AMG, fuck these games, is because one, I respect I respect the Wills. I do. And I respect Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have been playing their games for my entire life. I started myself with War Machine. And when I actually could understand the rules and I was old enough to be like, I know what I'm doing with War Machine. Like, Pagani and Schick were like very much into Privateer Press. So like my entire like adult life of gaming, I have basically dealt with the Wills like developing the game that I'm playing, which is kind of funny to think about.
Fair.
So it's like I respect them as game developers. I respect them as like all this, and they produce games that I love to play. But I do think though, if like let's say like AMG all of a sudden just went radio silent, and they went, hey, here's a release. Hey, here's a release. Hey, here's a release. And then like they don't talk about anything else other than like, hey, here's a release. Then I start getting that like, what's going on? Like what's the company planning to do? What's like I feel lost in this game, and it really takes me back to Guild Ball, where that's what Steam Forge Games did. Was here's a release. hey, here's
Got
like
quiet.
some cool stuff
Yeah.
coming. Oh, game's dead. We're not supporting the game anymore. And I don't want that to happen again. I don't see that happening with Marvel or Shatterpoint or anything like that. And I don't think AMG is following suit. But I'm just saying, like, what I want a game company to do that's producing the game that I love to play is like throw me a bone. Like tell me you see these things. Tell me that you want to improve. Tell me that you have this stuff planned for the next 6 months. Show me where you're going. I don't care what the models are. I don't care what it is. What is your game design philosophy for this next year or this next 6 months? Like we want to release characters that are going to more involve getting back to the scoring mechanics of the game. We've realized that we've gone into a very kill-centric game, and we'd like to bring back more of that scoring aspect. That's what I want. That's what I want AMG to do.
I think some of this is on like us as players too, because like we complain about a keep away meta, like oh everything's just keep away,
Yeah.
like you just like get up on objectives and run away, like you're just all you're trying to do is score out. You're not actually interacting with me, and then it's like okay, well let's resolve this, guys. Make them fight. Like everything we do now is gonna make you fight.
You're not
And so
wrong.
Now we're like, hey, so now all we do is fight.
Well-
I can't believe you guys would just make us fight like this.
But there's an interview with Chick that I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not quoting directly, all that type of stuff, right? Where he says that with MCP it was very
Sure.
much they designed characters to fix what was overarching previously. And I think that's fine. It's very much like cool, we have a Malekith meta where everything's kill. We now our next like cycle
Yeah.
is going to be toning down on that. We get damage reduction stuff. We get stuff that can change attack targets. We get stuff that does this, stuff that does that. And it's a very reactive design philosophy, and I think that's fine. I don't have any issues with that.
Concerns me. That feels like the FFG model where it was like, all right, like we need more defensive stacking because offense has got too good. Oh, okay. So now if you don't bring defensive stacks, then you can't actually do anything. Okay, so we got to bust up defensive stacks. Okay, so here's some like hyper powerful, hyper efficient like ordnance and upgrades that you can now bring. And now it's like, well, if you don't bring those, now you're not going to be able to do anything.
So
You're just going to get alphaed off the board. Or
my counterpoint to that though isn't that modern gaming? Modern gaming is very much a reactive, like oh shit, we got to
Sure,
do
maybe
something
that's the
about
problem.
this.
You know, like it's not a studio's
It's-
fault.
No, it's modern gaming, and
It's
I
also
feel like
you're not able to please everybody.
yeah. And I think the internet has a big thing to do with this. Is like we have such easy access to all this stuff to where like we have TTS where we can literally they spoil a card. Like AMG officially spoils a card, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks in advance of its actual release. I have played that
Right.
character. I have tested that character where I want to play them.
150 times.
I know exactly what no, but for real though, like competitive players are gonna do that. And back in the day, you would hear stories of people doing this though, and they would just do it pen and paper style, where they would set it up on their own table and they say, "Hey, we saw XYZ, we saw Malekith, and I want to try this character out in these situations." They would proxy it. This is what happened. But now with the internet, we have such easy access to these things to where we can just literally, I could sit on my ass and drink a beer and literally play test the shit out of this thing as much as I want and be like, hey, this character is releasing the month of Nova or the month of X like big convention that I'm going to. I can have 100 games played before this character is even out and have an understanding of this character of if I want to play it in my list or not. And that is such a glorious thing and such, I think, a thing that game companies almost like I'm sure they realize it, that it's like happening, but it's like I don't know if they know how to like factor that into their game design. Because it's very much like all of a sudden you go from, hey, we're going to release this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like we're used to like, we don't find the broken shit with this character in playtesting. Cool. Like this character's fine. We release it. When we expect, cool, maybe something broken comes out within like 6 to 8 months. And it's like in today's game, you find broken shit like as soon as the card is spoiled. Like somebody finds something because they're playtesting the
Well,
crap
the
out
nerd
of it.
hive mind is so much like more degenerate than any
Hive
game
mind,
developers.
yeah.
You know, like, you just- like I'm sorry.
The
like,
synapse
we're
is
just
strong,
like, hold
dude.
on, like we found this thing is busted. Well, I'm gonna scream it from the mountaintops, and then somebody else is like, no, wait, it's actually even more busted than that because now you can do
Yeah.
this with it. And you know, it just now we're in this like avalanche situation where we've gone from like this thing is like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe it's a little overpowered to being like, no, literally it shuts the entire game down. Whoopsie. Breaking all the rules. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
we
I
get
feel
what
like
we
I've been
ask
on
for,
a
we get what we
whining
want,
horse
like,
for the
by and
past
large.
like 20 minutes. I'm sorry, but like it asks me like what keeps me in a game, and that's very much where my mind
Open it
goes
up,
to.
so we're not gonna whine anymore. We're like, hold on, let's whine.
Well, I'm completely like I want to be transparent. Where it's like I want to think about what keeps me in a
Yes.
game, and what keeps me in the game is a company's transparency, a company's roadmap, a company showing me that they care for this game as much, if not more, than I do, and like that makes me feel good. Like when and I think AMG does a good job of this. I'm kind of like saying that like weirdly, but it's like I do think as far as a gaming company goes and my experience with gaming companies in the past, AMG does a pretty good job. Like they are making posts frequently, they are making all this. The only thing that AMG as a company has missed is the hey, here's a roadmap. But that being said, they did it what like 2 weeks to 4 weeks ago. They did that post where it's like, hey, we see these things, there's stuff coming, don't worry. And I think they did it one time in the past too, where there was like really
Right.
big issues, and they were like, "Hey, there's some stuff coming. Don't worry." I just, as a player, personally wish it was more frequent. And that could be just me being a whiny ass bitch about it, and it could be that. But
Some of that's like when your significant other or your parent or like somebody important to you is like, hey, we need to talk, and you're like, cool, can we just talk like right now? And they're like, no, we're gonna have to like schedule this out, like it's that serious, you know. And you're like, shit. Oh no. Okay,
sit,
like
and, sit and stew in it for a
yeah,
while.
right. Like, now I'm just gonna like go into this own like paranoid frenzy in my brain while I try to figure out like what's gone wrong.
What did you wanna
and see
talk
what happens
about?
when we...
what did I
What's in
fuck
the
up?
box?
gotta
What
wait
did
for
I
3
fuck
months.
up? But no, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but when I look at a game and what keeps me in the game, it's very much that stewardship of the game. It's very much like the community behind it. It's very much like my feelings for the game. And I will say, like MCP, there was a period of time where I was like, man, I'm like not enjoying playing MCP right now. And then Shatterpoint came out, and then I was like, wow, this game kicks ass. I love Shatterpoint. And then
Yeah.
I played MCP again, and I was like, wow, I fucking love MCP. So I think that also comes down to what Joey mentioned earlier, is like giving yourself that break. And Sam mentioned this too, where it's like there's times and periods, especially as a competitive gamer, where I try too hard. I put too many games in
Yeah.
with the same list. And if you don't change that up, you're going to give yourself burnout, whether the company's creating a good game or a bad game. And that's on you as a player. And that is where my issue
It
lies,
goes the
is
other way,
understanding
too,
that line.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like I said, it goes the other way too, because I don't know how, but I haven't experienced burnout yet, and I have not stopped playing this game for 3.5 years probably. But other people have.
Yeah. And
So-
that's hard.
Yeah, and that's like at this point I have one player that I consistently play with weekly. And we went from playing, and I'm not joking, 4 games per day for twice a week to like 1 game a week. But again, that's not for me. I would still play 4 games a day, but
Yeah.
I get it, you know. You're playing the same, like if I'm getting ready for a weekender tournament or a convention tournament, I'm gonna jam as many games as I can. I like different scenarios, figuring out different combos, whatever you want to call it. But other people don't like that. So that's something and I didn't even think about it. And truly, I feel like I'm kind of too much hard pressed gaming. Even in my small group before, we had a consistent group of probably about 8 to 10. Now there's like 3.
Yeah,
So,
it
I
just
mean-
happens. People move on. People lose interest. Like there's like it's like a I don't know, like an algorithm or something, for like lack of a better term, where it's like you can
Yeah.
literally just like over the course of the next 2 years, right? Like we've got 8 people. We need to keep new blood coming in because over
Yep.
the course of the next 2 years, like somebody's gonna like drop out of gaming completely. Just like
Right.
nah, like I just don't game anymore.
Yep.
You got somebody else who'll be like, this game was fun, but I love X, Y, and Z game. They've got a new edition coming out, and now that's my baby. Like this was fun. Like thanks. I'm not getting rid of my stuff, but that's gonna be like all my time now.
Right.
You're gonna lose like 3 to 5 people from a group of 8 to 10 over the course of a year and a half, and you just have to like. That's why you need new blood, which is why the timeline element that like I was concerned about. Like, this game's just been released for so long, where it's like, if you want this, like you've got to get a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And it's better than it used to be because like you don't have to buy MODOK for alien ship anymore, but you still like
That
there's a
reminds
lot
me,
of
I
releases
gotta
that you're going to pick up for one reason or another.
I gotta go print off all the crisis cards for Nova. I completely forgot about that. Thank you.
Here to help.
Maybe that's another thing too. Is I feel like there are even some game companies that need to adapt to the modern day. Like print and play is a thing, and I honestly think that
Yeah.
Yep.
game companies should just adopt print and play because, like, why not? It makes it so easy for your players. It makes things accessible. Why not adopt print and play?
Yep.
And if you don't do it, someone is going to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like if just because your company has decided like no, we have to sell this physical product, this physical book, this like whatever it is, like
Yep.
there is somebody else out there that's going to grab all of that and they're going to put it on the internet somewhere that you may or may not be aware of and you may or may not be able to do anything about for whatever reason. And now like I think like to some extent like TTS being out there is some of that. Like you can like, oh wow, look, there's a rule book in here. Crazy.
Yeah.
Or this or that. Like here's all these cards. And it's I don't know, as like a game studio, I think you want people playing your game, right? You have to make money to keep the lights on and keep, your employees and partners employed and housed and fed, and nobody wants to like move on from it. It's just like that's you also like how do you make your money if everything you're doing is free, which I think is a hard point for like modern gaming because everything's on the internet. If I can't find it, I can ask a friend for a photo. You know what I mean? Like, hey, can you send me a picture of that? And now I have it.
Yeah.
Boom.
All right.
That's the real pirate
Do you
shit.
do you guys have any closing thoughts about what you look for in a game, what keeps you in a game, anything that we have discussed over the last hour?
I got one.
Okay, what you got?
I mean, I think I have an opinion on what we all might be. But
Okay.
are you guys
Boomers.
familiar with the Timmy, Johnny, Spike archetypes from old Magic the Gathering? Where like Johnny's a brewer. Johnny likes to win on his own terms. He likes to win, but he likes to win on his own terms. Timmy likes the big shit. He likes the big, splashy, ridiculous combos. And like they just like if it's not big enough, then like it's not good enough for him, right? Your Timmy the power gamer, like he has to wind up that haymaker a couple of times before he can throw it, or he's not satisfied. And then you've got the Spike, which is like the total optimized. Like you're just like, what's the best? That's what I play. Do you guys identify with one of those more than another? Because I'm definitely more of a Johnny than I am other things. Like I want to win on my terms.
Yeah, that's where I'm sitting at too.
I'm very much a
I could use MCP as an example for that.
yeah.
As far as like splash characters and such, I
Yeah.
won't put bad guys with good guys and vice versa.
There you go.
Like that's kind of how I play, and I'm down to play underrated factions, but and I've done well like with defenders. I've won a tournament with defenders, and I thought it was pretty sweet.
That's
They're
such a
probably-
good feeling when you do that
Yeah,
kind of
man,
stuff.
exactly.
You're like, this is
Like, man,
supposed
this
to be bad.
affiliation's borderline terrible, but hey, I won.
What's funny is when you can walk away from those games, you're like, yeah, no, it is actually very difficult to play.
Yeah. Well, and that's like another part of it. It's just another challenge to the,
Yeah.
another challenging aspect to it. But yeah, I definitely fall into that category. I feel like.
I feel like I'm like a mix because I really like to, like I said, like I like to play what I want to play, and then I also
Yeah.
very much like to innovate things. I very much want to like be the person that's like,
Well, that's all.
well, how did you make?
Both
Oh,
of
it's all
those are
Johnny.
Johnny
Okay, then I'm Johnny. I'm a fucking Johnny. Let's go.
That's all Johnny. those are both Johnny attributes.
Okay, then I'm a Johnny. I
Don't church it
also
up, dirt.
fair enough. I also want to say like I may be talking shit and all this, and I may like have some really strong feelings when it comes to it, but I will say like AMG has done an outstanding job with Marvel Crisis Protocol and Shatterpoint. I do love AMG as a company. There's just one thing that I wish that AMG did more of, and that was transparency. I can't
I think
speak so
everything
much.
should be more transparent. Like
Yeah, but
just
that's-
in
yeah.
general.
Yeah, just make everything
Which is, I
transparent.
think part of the reason why I'm liking this little pivot that we're looking at and we're experimenting with here, because like doing the Shatterpoint podcast is great, but like we're constantly trying not to reference MCP on it.
Yeah. Which is so fucking hard.
You know, we're doing an MCP focused podcast, and like I'm literally like being like, well, what army am I going to bring to the next Sigmar thing that I'm doing? You know, like okay, let's talk about MCP some more. And there's an honesty and a transparency to this that feels a lot better to me, where it's just like, you know, we're here, we're gamers, like absolutely everybody on this podcast plays MCP, right? Like period. And then we also play other things. Like what is hate, Joey? What is that back there?
Oh, dude, that game's sweet. It's like it's a grid-based game also. The abridged version is you have tribes. It's post-apocalyptic kind of
Okay.
barbarian tribe stuff. You have a champion, which is a much larger model than followers, shamans, the whole deal. Basically, what your goal is to beat the opponent, and you eat them. you gain resources because there's no resources left on the planet. It's the
Sure.
planet has been ravaged and whatnot. But yeah, gaining territories and grabbing resources and stuff. It's
right.
it's a pretty rowdy game.
What's the
Yeah, it sounds
chances?
like it.
What's the chances of you bringing that to Nova so we could play a game at 2:00 in the morning?
I can bring it. We can definitely do it.
I mean, we'll be there from what, Thursday to Monday, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring it. If we get a game, we'll get a game in. All right, let's go ahead and move on to listener questions. We got one from Laugh. A lot of talk about power creep in the game, comparing core boxes from game launch to the new box coming in October. What is your opinion? Is there visible power creep in the character cards? It seems to me, at the very least, average defense stats are up. And why does AMG hate crossbones?
Interesting.
Number one, I don't think AMG hates crossbones. I think this crossbones.
Pouring one out for
So,
Brock.
okay, so I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw this crossbones, I was like, it's the same fucking character. And then I looked at it again, and somebody's like, "You're an idiot," and I was like, "Oh,
No,
he has a range attack," and that literally changes crossbones so much. The fact that he has a range
And hit and
attack
run.
and hit and run makes crossbones actually really kind of good. So I think the fact that crossbones is still a slow mover, he still has basically the same defenses, the same stuff, but the fact that now he has a range attack with hit and run is actually really fucking good.
It's a beam, right?
Yeah, it's a beam 3, I think.
Yeah, that's
um,
pretty sweet.
So I don't think AMG hates crossbones. I think this crossbones is leaps and bounds above the other crossbones, which goes into the whole power creep conversation. And I think, me personally, I'll let the other guys answer too, but it's like me personally, I think MCP has changed. We've talked about this multiple times on the cast. MCP is not the same MCP it was 6 months ago. It's not the same MCP it was 3 years ago. When it's not the same MCP it was
Right.
what, 4.5 to 5 years ago when the original Crossbones was designed. So yeah,
Mhm.
like every game that comes out is gonna eventually face power creep, and I'm not afraid to say or hesitant to say that yes, MCP has hit power creep. It absolutely has, because three threats were different than three threats that were released 3 years ago. But that's because the game of MCP has changed, and that's just a thing that's gonna happen. I don't necessarily think it makes characters obsolete that came out 3 years ago because they do different things, but there are different things that are coming out now that are more prevalent in the current meta and the current game state of MCP. So it's more so it's a living game. It's gonna change, and like yeah, things just get stronger because that's what happens.
I think I largely agree with that. It's a different game than it was. That's for sure. There's, I guess, like your previous statement on power creep that like is it we're just finally starting to see like what the top end of the game's
Yeah.
preordained power structure looks like. So have we? I mean, like if I like that as a perspective, but like that's one of those things where like it only works until like we see like even more power creep from where we are now, because then it's like yeah, okay, maybe not. Maybe that
Yeah.
was not actually the case, but I think power creep is pretty hard to deny at this point. But I do like the way that they couch it as a studio, where it's just like we're designing a different game now than we were then. We're better at what we're doing than we were then. Like we're trying to create more new and interesting pieces. I think that this second core set is an amazing uh, lifeline, and rebirth don't seem like the right words, but like that somewhere like this is good. This is very good for the long-term health of the game, in my opinion, because we're saying, all right, here is a basically like build and grow core set instead of a game introduction core set, right? Because like there's like everybody's a leader in this core set. Like you just like build this out in one of like a dozen different trees. Basically, like after you get this core set, you can do so many other different things. So I think it's really good for the long term health of the game. I, as a player and a fan of comic books, don't love that it's like basically all the same characters that we already have at least one other version of in the game that are giving leaderships by and large to factions that, in my opinion, maybe don't need a second leadership as much as maybe some other ones might. You know, like so here's your second or your third leadership. Meanwhile, Defenders is just like, well, hi
Here we
there.
are.
How about this kind of subpar ability attached to a 5 threat body that doesn't have any extra mobility to him? You're like, okay, crap. So I think that there's some power creep, and I mean we've talked a lot about the design, like schedule, like so like you know our assumption is that models are being designed basically 24 to 18 months prior to release, and that's like they're not designed at that period, but like that's how long it takes a piece to get into the game, basically. And so like you're looking at something like that, then you've got a Malekith that's being tested in a pre card pack environment. You've got a lot of things that are happening, like the cable and drop off thing, where you've like we're gonna have to ban drop off because if we don't, cable's too good.
And now you
And then
have
cable
Ghost
comes
Rider,
out and you're like, really?
and now
Right,
you
and
have
we
Ghost
Cosmic
Rider.
Ghost Rider. It's just like, well, okay. So
Okay.
oh, power creep is a thing in these games, and
To be
it just kind
fair,
of is what it is.
To be fair,
So,
if drop off was
I-
still a thing with Cosmic Ghost Rider, like, oh no. Like
You
I will
shut
say
your whore mouth.
I will say getting rid of drop off was absolutely the right decision. The
Oh, I
reasoning
feel the same way
of
about Follow Me. Like the
Yeah.
first game I played with Cosmic Ghost Rider, I was just like, for a Follow Me, what I would give for a Follow Me
I mean,
right now.
which shows
He's got so much power.
like in my opinion
Stewardship.
the BNR shows stewardship of the game, which I appreciate
Yeah,
AMG
it
for.
does.
Joey, do you have any closing thoughts for the conversation or this? Sorry, I'm on the questions. Anyways, do you have any thoughts on the power creep
No,
question?
generally speaking, power creep is definitely there, but I think it's a healthy bit of power creep, if that makes sense. I don't think anything is like broken in the game. I've thought that for a long time, but what do I know? Certain characters are menaces, but
Yeah.
the problem with that is not that the character is broken or is too powerful or whatever. I feel like for the most part. The issue with it is too many people play them, or people complain about having to play the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, what can
Somebody
you
says
do?
it's good. Somebody says it's great. Somebody says it's the best. So everybody who feels like that's what they have to run, every spike right now has to be
Exactly.
like, all right, I have to run this
Spike. Yep.
because like
Yep.
it's the best. And then everybody gets tired of seeing it. And so my
Yeah.
problem with the powerful pieces like that is that it takes away a lot of your agency as a player because
Yeah.
now you have to bring some kind of counter tech to
Yep.
the matchup. You're like, it's like I can't play what I want to play. That was the thing that initially like maybe finally concede that maybe Black Order was a problem before the rules updates happened and all of you know the affiliation got nerfed into the ground multiple times. Is that they basically force your opponent to not play Marvel Crisis Protocol, the game that they showed up to play. Like
Right.
like you're gonna if you brought your favorite characters into an old Black Order team,
Mhm.
they were just gonna be like, well, that one looks easy to kill. Like, come on over here. I'm going to take that off the table now. And you
had a good
never
run.
got to activate with it. Like, you got to move it up to the center line on turn 1, and then I killed it. And like, so it's like I've literally taken away your fun in this game by like your favorite mini, your centerpiece mini, the best paint job you have in your team, like whatever it was that like made you happy to play, and you just didn't get to play with that model. Like that hurts. And there's an agency level to that where like it's not that you can't answer it, it's that you have to play the game differently. You have to bring tech pieces, you have to not put your favorite character on the table because like they're a liability in this matchup. Like
Or don't
crap.
put them in the middle of the board. Either way.
I'll come get you.
Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Forget about it.
Oh, especially now. Yeah.
The power creep, like I said, I feel like it's in a healthy state. Like if you don't have power creep, you have a stale game, in my opinion. Like the game's not really going up or down.
okay.
It's just there.
I think that's a great way to put it. Is if you don't have power creep, is the game actually changing? Is the game improving? Is the game changing? And if it's not,
Yeah.
then like you said, it's a stale game at that point. So there kind of has to be power creep at some point. It's just when is the right time. The game's been out for
Mhm,
coming up
yeah.
on 4 years. I think it's okay for some power creep.
For sure.
You're
happens
going to
with
get
game
power creep or
design
you're going to get
and-
bloat, right? You
Yeah.
might get both.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
well, which one would you rather have? I guess maybe I'd rather have power creep than bloat because bloat can get bad. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Well,
like
well, power creep
now I
also
got this other
changes
thing
this.
that I have to remember and
Power creep changes the state of the game. It changes what the definition of
Yeah.
like what is the MCP that I am playing right now. And the MCP that is being played right now is can I kill? Can I survive? Is it worth scoring?
Yeah.
That is the MCP that is right now, and I think that's the biggest thing that us as players needs to adopt is can I kill? Can I survive? Can I keep scoring? And if you change your mindset to that instead of going back to the MCP of 3 years ago where it was how do I score as fast as possible, like that mindset is not playable in current MCP. Like if you go with that mindset, you're just gonna lose because you're gonna get wiped off the table.
it's
So
all
it-
counting points now.
It comes back to the whole boomer conversation where it's like the game has changed. We need to adapt as players and realize that the game has changed, and that's how you become a competitive player is knowing the change is happening before everybody else.
Absolutely. I gotta say, I am hyped about the new core box. I'll probably only play
Same.
like 3 characters in it, but I'm
Stock
hyped
Ock,
about it
that's all I
because it's
want.
gonna change stuff.
I want Doc Ock so
Oh,
fucking
Iron Man's
bad.
my dude.
dude.
I like
I,
Iron
oh,
Man,
new
too.
new
Like,
Iron Man is
Iron Man,
sick.
man.
Oh man, but
Yeah,
I'm not
new
gonna lie.
character's
Like
Pretty
for
sick
him.
too. I like hitting wild triggers.
Yep.
I am
Corvus under new cap. See
I
how
am
that feels.
super excited to play new foes when this core box drops. I cannot wait.
Yep.
Okay.
And
From Nick
that's
E.
like all part of it too. I'm ready
go
for
ahead.
the rest of the opponents also.
Yeah.
Just what everybody else is gonna bring new to
Well,
the game.
it's gonna breathe new life into the game. It's a drop of 10 characters at one point, or what 11 characters, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's a huge drop of characters that's gonna drastically
10 and a
change
half.
the state of the game. So it's nice. The next question is from Nick E. When the new core box drops in October, do you think they should rebalance the affiliation list? If yes, what changes do you think /could be made? My number one answer is Omega Red for X Force because it should have been done a long time ago and it should be done now. And that'll always be my answer.
Fully
Omega
back
Red for
that.
X Force. I will petition this. I will say, why is this
Fully
not
back
done?
that.
That being said, we all need to consider the fact that this is a Marvel licensed product. So when it comes to these affiliations, there's probably some legal issues that go on with this, and AMG might
Yeah.
be hand tied as far as what they can do with affiliations. And changing that affiliation list might be harder than we think it is.
I still would love to see a leader-based affiliation list instead of it just being Avengers. It's Sam Wilson Avengers. It's Hulkbuster Avengers. It's Steve
West
Cap
Coast Avengers.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
just split that team up a lot more
Right.
than it is. So you can't bring all the best Avengers. Bring the 3 cheapest best Avengers and then whatever other 2 pieces in the game you wanted to.
Right.
I'd love to see a little more out of that, but that gets crunchy, right? So the concern there is, in my mind, is that gets crunchy really fast. And I've spent a lot of time in this game, but if you tell me that there's like an all new, all different Avengers with Sam Wilson as the leader, and then there's a West Coast Avengers with a Hawkeye leader, and
Yep.
then there's like a Steve Cap classic, and then a Steve Cap 90s, and then
Yep.
like okay, like who are these guys? Like
Well,
I'm
that's
not
just
going to remember
Avengers
who's
at that
on
point.
which list.
Right.
Just coming into play. So it's like, I don't know. Is Voodoo affiliated for 90s Cap, or is that only 2000s Cap? Like, what do we got going on now?
Yeah, you're gonna have to break that down big time.
Yeah. So I'd love to see that, but the crunchiness there would, I think, get out of hand like way too fast.
Yeah, I was wondering about affiliations as far as speaking like rogue agents, like because I don't know how they're gonna do this new Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was saying have rogue agents as its own affiliation, and they can kind of go wherever. Like these people, because it doesn't have it on its card.
Oh, he
The
might
new
just not
Bucky
be a
doesn't
rogue
have-
agent.
Right.
I
Well, yeah,
feel
that's
like
definitely
Rogue
a
Agent was something that
possibility.
we needed 2.5, 3 years ago, and now it might cause more problems than it's worth. In all
Right.
honesty, and I wonder. I know that when they did the core box